Do you struggle with how to write an introduction? If so, you're not alone. There are 3 important questions about introductions that nearly everyone asks. What goes into an introduction? How to begin the essay? That is, the first sentence or two. How much of the argument should I reveal in the introduction? Remember, we are discussing argumentative or opinion type essays in the academic writing series. Let's get answers to each of these questions. First, what do you put in the introduction? For most essays assigned in high school and in writing class at university, you need the following: an opening sentence or two that is interesting or informative, a clear exposition of your main idea or thesis statement, and a brief overview of how you intend to argue your main point. Now, I want to draw your attention to a distinction between this essay, which emphasizes writing ability, some logic, and some general but not specific knowledge, and a research essay, which employs sources. I will discuss the research essay in a separate advanced writing series, appropriate for a bachelor's or master's thesis or a doctoral thesis. The introductions for essays which utilize sources are much more complicated and longer. The essay that we are discussing presently is anywhere from 2 to 5 pages and requires some reading, but not necessarily documenting your sources. Second, how do you begin your essay? There are several techniques that you can employ. I'll devote a whole video to this topic in the next video, so don't miss it. But for now, let's cover some of the ideas very briefly. First, you can provide relevant context for your argument. So if you are arguing for fewer cars in the Moscow city center in order to reduce traffic and thus increase the quality of living amongst residents, you could begin your essay with the population growth over the last decade. Or more directly, you could begin with the increase in the number of people who own cars in the last 5 years. Secondly, you could also begin with an interesting statistic, such as the number of cars in Moscow grew by more than 5% last year alone, for a total of 4.5 million cars. Third, you could begin with a definition. Traffic is defined as a delay of more than 30 minutes to your normal travel time. Fourth, you could, on occasion, begin very dramatically with your main idea. The number of cars needs to be reduced dramatically in the city center if the high quality of living amongst residents there is to be maintained. Next week, I will offer a more in-depth discussion on this very interesting and important topic. The third question that most people ask about the introduction is, how much of my argument should I place in the introduction? It depends, and there is no consensus on an answer. In general, the shorter your essay, the less you have to announce in the introduction. I recommend highlighting the key supporting evidence in the introduction before the reader begins reading the body of the essay. This prepares them for what they are about to read and allows your ideas to be heard twice, once in general terms, the second time in more detail. So, for example, if we take the above-mentioned thesis on cars in the city center, then we might add this after our thesis statement in the introduction. As a reminder, here's the thesis statement. Reducing the number of cars and thus traffic in the city center is necessary in order to increase the quality of living amongst residents there. Your supporting ideas might look like this. The noise from honking cars in traffic, along with the pollution that cars produce while waiting in large traffic jams, adversely affects residents in the area. Then, in the body of the essay, you go into greater detail on these 2 supporting points: noise and pollution. I hope that this video has cleared up some of your doubts on this important topic of introductions. I will address how to begin your essay in the next video. Be sure to watch for it. And if you enjoyed this video, like it, subscribe to my channel, click the notification button, and tell a friend about it. Thanks for watching.